Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Honestly, Let's Talk. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, and I am so excited every week to bring you some of my favorite people on to talk about a variety of topics. I can't tell you how much I have loved having these live talks every Thursday at 8 p.m. Central. And today, I invited somebody I just met yesterday, but have been thrilled to get to know a little. Okay, I'm totally lying. I've known this guy for a while, but I was like, you know what? I really want to talk about student leadership. And of course, I've got to invite Adam Dovico on with me to have this conversation. So Adam, thanks for being here. For those who don't know who you are, as if I haven't already advertised who you are enough in everything I do, introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, do I count as one of your favorite people then? Is that like an official proclamation
I
since I'm
mean,
on the
as soon
show?
as you send in this month's dues, yes, you will count.
All right. Deal. Yes. All right. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Adam Dovico, as Todd mentioned, and I am a career educator. I'm actually a Yankee by birth, New Jersey, born and bred. But I've lived in the South now for over 20 years, so I could say y'all and you guys all in one sentence. I've had many roles in education, anything from teacher to curriculum coach, principal, college professor, and author. So a little bit of everything, but education, teaching, that's my skill set, my passion, and I guess my career.
Well, hey, man, I'm so excited to talk with you tonight about a topic I know you and I are both very passionate about, and that is student leadership. And the reason, you and I do Get Your Lead On together, and we work with adults all the time about growing themselves as leaders. And, the whole idea of student leadership is you and I just didn't see it enough. And that's what we want to start talking about. So kind of talk to me about why is student leadership so important to you before we start diving into some ways that people can practice it?
Well, we see adult leadership promoted so often, and even in like college courses, and when you're being prepped to be a teacher, there's always like leadership courses, but it's always based around what the adult is doing. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I mean, we need adult leaders and we need adults who understand how to lead. But, that doesn't mean adults should be getting trained or people should be getting trained when they are adults to be leaders. There's some fortunate individuals who have opportunities throughout their entire life to be leaders, which is great. But there's a lot of young leaders who are waiting for that opportunity, that moment, that training that's going to give them the base and the skills that's going to be needed to kind of have that same chance that those who maybe have a little bit more opportunity in their life to start out with, so that the playing field is a little bit more even. So it's just needed. It's needed to make a more even playing field in my mind.
Well, and what we have always found interesting, you and I, as we've talked about things, is that, that focus is so heavily on the adults, but also at the same time, there's a lot of us who will make excuses by saying, oh, the kid's too young to do this. Oh, they're not ready for that. Oh, I teach elementary. Like, we've got a line leader and a person who picks up. That's how I'm growing it. And like you and I have discussed before, leadership is so much bigger than that. And it doesn't matter what your age is, just like it doesn't matter what your title at your job is. You can lead. You are a leader. And you've got two young boys that you're raising yourself. And so when did that kind of hit you, that this whole idea of student leadership doesn't have to be attached to an age?
Well, I think I saw it firsthand with my older son, Ryder, when he was in first grade, and I was his principal at the school. And yeah, for anyone watching this who has kids at their own school, you know that teacher kids just kind of they're their own little breed, because they oftentimes are at the school a lot. And as the principal's kid, Ryder was there a lot. And so I found him being in situations where he was just around other adults more probably than the average kid, and a lot of different adults, whether it was people I had a meeting with or just other teachers. And I just wanted to give him that chance, even at, what was he, 6, 7 years old. I wanted to give him that chance to be a leader. And I didn't call it that necessarily. It wasn't like I was like Ryder, you're going to be a leader here. But I just started giving him opportunities and training, kind of low key. Didn't want to make it too overwhelming, but just small pieces, small things. For example, when I would have a meeting and it was a teacher work day, so there's no other kids in the building, I would have him wait out in the lobby. So when that person came to the door, if my front office was out that day, he would be kind of the greeter for that person. And I taught him how to shake a hand and introduce himself and how to say, won't you come follow me back to Mr. Dovico's office? And, small things like that where he would get excited about it, and he got really good at it too. And so his confidence went up dramatically. His awareness, his skill sets of just interacting with other people. And he was a shy kid. And it just kind of really blossomed him into a leader without using that word exactly.
Well, I want to talk about some leadership things that we can do. Before we dive in that, I want to hit one more thing. I've really gotten to know you and a lot of the things that you do with kids and adults and your beliefs about a lot. But one of the things that has impressed me the most, and for me, it goes back to not making excuses. I mentioned just a second ago that sometimes we use the kids' age as an excuse of why they can't be a leader or aren't ready for something. But sometimes there are challenges in children's lives that make them different or that make them have a harder hill to climb to be at the front or to be somebody that's viewed as a leader. And when you were a principal at your school, you had a hard of hearing and deaf population that would be an easy population for the general person to come in and say, I don't know if they're capable of leading. How are they going to do this or that? Or make all these kind of excuses for them. But what I've always admired about you is you never viewed any kid and any struggles they were having as a hindrance to why they couldn't be a leader. Instead, your focus was always, you are capable. Let me find a way to amplify what your strengths are and start there. When did that become something that was so close to who your heart and who you are?
I'll be honest, that specific scenario just kind of stumbled upon me because, when I got my principal job, I didn't know that was a component of the school at first. It ended up being a piece of the school that was my entire heart. For anyone who follows me knows that population of students is just so near and dear to me. Actually, I don't know if you could see it. Can you see my shirt there?
Uh-huh.
I'm wearing as well. But I didn't know the name of it at the time, but now that I'm doing a lot more work with it, a lot of people carry with them a deficit mindset. And that deficit mindset looks at kind of that lowest denominator that students bring with them, whether it might be a disability, it might be racially or culturally or socioeconomically. And people make these assumptions based on stereotypes, based on their own prior biases. And so what I guess subconsciously aim to do is eliminate those deficit mindsets and that deficit bias by making all the kids a star. And that's always my mindset. How can I make you a star? And I don't want to make it seem like every kid needs to be up in the front on stage. That's not what being a star is. Being a star is really just giving the kid an opportunity to be really proud and confident at something. Maybe it's a game. Maybe it's a behind the scenes. I'll give an example in a little bit because I know we're going to transition to a couple different topics, but finding ways for kids to feel important. And I don't have a lot of talents, but I think I do have a talent at finding something within a kid to make them proud.
And I love that you share that because I remember visiting your campus, and that's what truly made it sink in for me. Was hearing you tell stories and things is one thing, but when I got to see, like when you would enter a room and it was a deaf and hard of hearing room and the kids are working, they would see you and you'd start to try your signing and they'd try to join. You could see just the joy that somebody saw them. Somebody didn't see a disability or a title. And I think as educators and as parents, that's one of the most powerful tools that we have is exactly what you said, letting them be seen and then figuring out a way to amplify their strengths. And I love that you said that other point of being a leader isn't just the loudest person in the room, isn't the one at the front all the time, or the one who's always volunteering. You and I talk a lot about there's introvert leaders and extrovert leaders, and they're both and all needed. And so I love that you shared that. So transitioning just a little bit, I know some people listening are going to go, okay, we love the stories, Adam. It's great. Thanks, Todd. But like, I need something tangible. So all the experiences that you've had, for people who are listening today, what are some of your favorite ways to kind of grow that student leadership?
So this would be a good time to share, a couple of those examples I just referenced. The first one at my new school, I'm at a new school this year, my first year there. I'm in a curriculum coach, instructional coach role. But one of the things that I kind of, I guess, took on at the beginning of the year was the student news, or the morning news, I should say. And before we ever got students back, I just kind of organized it because we didn't have any students. And then once we got students back, I turned that entire show over to them. And so everything from the anchors to the writers, the producers, they do it all. And so I'm in the room when they do it, but I tell them by the time I get to the room in the morning, I said, I need everything ready. Literally, you should be able to press go, press start, camera on when I walk in, and they do every morning. And the story I was going to reference before was or is about a student who we have now, and he's one of our producers, I guess you could say. He's like the tech guy. And it's just so cool seeing him. He's a student I think lacked a lot of confidence coming into this year and has had some struggles in various entities. But oh man, when he gets behind a computer, when he gets to do like the tech stuff, oh, it's just like you could just see him light up. And even today, we had a big event at the school today, and it required a lot of technology stuff in different aspects, and I can't be everywhere at the same time. And so I pulled him aside and I said, I need you to do this, this, and this for me at this time. Everything was ready. And it's just really cool to give a kid like that just all this responsibility. You see his confidence grow. I don't know. It just makes me really happy seeing that. Another idea I think a really
well let me interrupt you
yeah.
because I love something you shared there, because I love that you're giving kids that ownership. You're finding ways to amplify their strengths, because it reminds me of what my music teacher would do at my school, is that not everybody loved being in choir, but they loved going to his music class. And so there was always some kids who didn't want to perform, but they would work at that sound booth and they would go get everything together and they'd run all the systems. So I love this shit, but I've got to ask, there might be people who are listening today to go, Adam, that sounds great, but I'm kind of a control freak. So I've got to know, Adam, have you ever been, I know sometimes we're all kind of that control freak. So how did you get to the point where you're like, I'm okay with relinquishing the control and giving it to them?
Well, I'm not always, and that's something that I'm always trying to grow on. What I've been able to, I guess, grow into is the front end training. And so I don't just take a kid, say, here, go, and never see him again. I do a lot of front end training and a lot of feedback early on. And so I've had programs, like that I've called ambassadors and greeters, and even this tech crew and the news station. Ask them. I'm not easy on them. I'm tough on them at first. Lots of feedback, lots of second rounds, lots of do-overs. And I do that because I want the final product to be at a point where I don't need to intervene. That's when I feel more comfortable stepping back, relinquishing that control. Once I know that, all right, you're at a good spot. I trust you, I believe in you, and I know you're ready. And so it doesn't come overnight. It sometimes takes a while, but it's a really good feeling when we get there. I'm actually going to be embarking tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. Yes, tomorrow's Friday. Tomorrow, I'm going to be starting a new training opportunity with a student. Next week, we have a virtual open house for rising kindergartners. And I'm sure many people watching this are also going to be dealing with this soon, because we can't have parents in the building. So we've had to rework all of the open house stuff that schools have always had. So we're going to have a virtual open house for these parents. And of course, the principal talks, the teacher talks. Well, I said I want a student to be talking. So we selected a student who we thought would be a good rep for it. And so tomorrow I'm going to be starting her training for the next 4 or 5 days. And so she and I are going to work on this. And I know that by next Thursday night is when we have our first one, she'll be ready. And I'll feel good about relinquishing that control. But for the next 4 or 5 days, she's probably going to hate me a little bit, but it'll come around. It always comes around.
Well, I'm really glad that you shared that because, I think sometimes people can hear and see the things that are happening and then they go and try and do it and realize it doesn't work the first time very often. It doesn't work the second time very often. There's a lot of editing, a lot of practice until you can get to that point. And so I'm really glad that you were able to share that piece too. And so before I interrupted you, you were going to share another example too.
Yes. So one of the big things that I'm working on at my new school, we did it at my previous school, was student-led conferences. And I don't want to make it sound like an easy thing because it's not, but it really, when you implement it, and you can read all about it in our book, When Kids Lead. But the crux of it is that students take ownership of their learning, their data, their communication with their parents. And I think it's one of the most powerful things that you can do in a school, in a classroom. And so we're starting the venture at my new school. We're taking baby steps. We're just kind of doing it piece by piece. You got to be strategic with it. But I love the concept of students taking ownership of their learning and adding that element of accountability onto them.
So, you've got so many ideas. I could literally, I know by spending time with you, we could talk for like 2 more hours about here's another thing, here's another thing, here's another thing. And so you mentioned though, just now, you've got a book out that you wrote with this guy that's like one of my heroes and it's called When Kids Lead. And so tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I don't know the guy you're talking about, but but When Kids Lead is a book about how you can cultivate, develop, encourage student leadership. And I've spent the past several minutes explaining what I believe student leadership is, but I think the proudest elements of this book that me and this other dude wrote are are that the elements of the book that are traditionally focusing on adults are really turned into focusing on kids. Right. This is not about adult accomplishments. This is about student accomplishments, what children can do. But it's written from the perspective of, hey, adults, here's what we need to do to cultivate this. We can't just magically say, hey, kids, go do this. Life isn't set up that way. Some kids just get it right away. That's awesome. But like I said before, I want to find a way to make every kid a star. And so whether you do have that outgoing, sparkly kid in your class who we're oftentimes attracted to in terms of like, hey, I can give them lots of responsibilities, or I can put them up in front on the stage, or the kid that sits in the back and maybe doesn't say 2 words to you. We want to find ways to make every one of them feel confident and grow their voice. And by their voice, I don't just mean verbally, though that's important, and we talk a lot about in the book, but your voice can come in many different ways. And your voice can be something that you can write. It could be something that you can create. It could be a way that you help someone. But it's really about building that opportunity in a student's life to be confident, proud, bold, and successful.
Well, and what I love about When Kids Lead is it's not a book that's just meant for elementary children. There's great middle school examples. There's great high school examples. But to me, what makes the book something truly special, yes, there's a lot of great ideas. Yes, there's step-by-step directions. We had a brilliant editor who helped us make it really something that was even more than what we dreamed of. But there are little bitty elements and touches to this book that make it something different than anything else on the market. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, first and foremost, the forward of the book, which is traditionally written, obviously you and I have both written several books before, and usually the forward is written by, a well-known or accomplished or successful writer, author, educator, someone famous sometimes. And we wanted to switch that. And the forward was written by someone who I think, and I know you do as well, is very successful, but you may not know his name right away. But he's a young man, Joshua Williams, who started a nonprofit as a kid in Miami and has done amazing leadership things, more than I think you and I have done combined. And so we asked
And
him
he's
to
still
write.
a teenager.
I know, seriously. So we wanted to do that. Our acknowledgments usually that's a place where you get, again, some friends, other authors, people that are of big followings, and you have them write nice things about the book and stuff. But we wanted to kind of switch that around. And so you and I, we gave shout outs to kids who are doing great things, kids, teenagers, young adults, who are doing great things in their hometowns, in their communities, and even states sometimes. And then we have quotes. We have lots of quotes. We asked dozens and dozens of kids, like, what is a leader? What is leadership? And they answered it in so many unique and amazing ways, things that you didn't expect from a 7-year-old. And we start each chapter with them. We sprinkle them through the book as well. So those are just a few of the ways that we wanted to make this book a little bit different, something that was truly, truly, truly about students, about kids.
And and the book When Kids Lead, it's got stuff you talked about today. It's got student ambassadors, greeters, social media interns, parent teacher conferences being redone where there's student-led conferences. It has how to work with introverts, extroverts, the power of books and how leaders are readers. I mean, there is so much in this book that's what I love about it. It doesn't matter where you are in wanting to grow student leaders, you'll be able to take something and run with it. And I know that, as we close this out, before I ask you my final question, I know too that, you also go out and you help train schools and teachers and organizations too with this kind of thing as well. And so that's also an avenue that people could look out to as saying, Adam, I love your work. I love it. You also will go to schools and do stuff, right?
Yeah, I love traveling around and helping teachers, schools, kids learn these types of things. And, one of the, I think the hardest parts is the teacher training aspect of it. The kid part is easy. I mean, kids are hungry for this kind of stuff because it's exciting, it's different. It's not just like sitting down and being talked to, like it's action oriented. These are action steps. And it's more so getting adults to believe in it. And that's one of the most challenging and exciting parts for me, at least, is showing them. And I literally step into classrooms and do it with kids. And so I try to take the excuse aspect out of it because I understand sometimes you go into other classrooms and you're like, oh, if I had those kids. Well, no, I'm doing it with your kids, like the kids that you have every day. And so I love doing that at my own school. In fact, I have a lesson I'm doing tomorrow in second grade. And I do that each week, try to do that each week in my school. And I love going to other schools as well and doing it with kids I don't know.
Well, I hope after listening today, people will pick up a copy of When Kids Lead, written by you and me, in case people didn't catch that already. But I do know, too, if people do end up doing school book studies over When Kids Lead, Adam and I will both jump on like a Google Hangout or a Skype and chat with y'all as part of a thank you for doing a book study. And Adam and I also put in a lot of work that we created a free PDF book study guide to go along with you. So you can contact either one of us and we will get you that book study guide for free. But as we close out, Adam, this is a conversation today about student leadership. And so for anybody listening today, if they were just to walk away with one thing, what's your one thing for them?
Every kid can lead. There is no such thing as a single type of leader. Leadership looks a lot of different ways. And whether they are young or old, different races, different abilities, different looks, every kid has an opportunity to lead. And it's our job as adults to make sure we find a way for that kid to be a leader.
Awesome. I love it. Well, Adam, thank you so much for being a guest today. Everybody, please go check him out on social media and his website, adamdovico.com. Thank you for joining another episode of Honestly Let's Talk. And be on the lookout, everybody. I'm creating 2 new online courses, one for building classroom culture, one for building campus culture. They come out in May. And then in a few months, you may see another little special course from me and Adam about when kids lead. And so be on the lookout for those. Sign up for my email list at bit.ly/Todd email, or just go to my website, toddnesseloni.com, and it's a pop-up. You can sign right up for the latest info. Check out all the past episodes of Honestly Let's Talk on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get your stuff. It's there. And you can join live every Thursday night at 8 p.m. Central for another episode of Honestly Let's Talk.